Hello, book besties, and welcome back to my channel, Chris T's Books. My name is Christy. If you do not know me, I love tea and I love books. Oh my gosh, wait, let me show you what tea I'm drinking. We have our R2D2 cup that says, "You are too cute." I'm drinking some sort of blueberry tea with honey. Literally delicious. Oh my god, this is so good. You're wondering why my voice is giving disgusting? It's because I'm currently getting over a sickness. I don't know what sickness. I think it's just like I teach children and they're always hugging me. But for today's video, we are going to be talking about the books that I read in January. I read 10 books this January. That's not unusual for me. It's kind of like average for me. I feel like my average is like 8 to 10 books a month. I read 10 books in the month of January, all sorts of different genres, as you will see. Let's go ahead and get started. The first book that I read in January is Wisteria by Adeline Grace. This is the third book in the Belladonna trilogy. I love the Belladonna trilogy so much, and I am so sad that it's over, honestly. It was so good. For those of you who do not know what the trilogy is about or you've never heard of it, don't even worry, I've got you. The first book is Belladonna, and that book follows a girl named Signa. She has kind of always had this relationship with death. Like, death follows her around, and death is like a person in this book. What's it called? Personification? I don't know what it's called, honestly. I think it's personification, but death is a person, essentially like a Grim Reaper. Death appears around her constantly, like death is always popping up. That's death in this book, okay? She kind of hops around family members and stays with them, and then they'll die, and then she'll go to the next one. She essentially moves into, I think it's called Thorngrove Manor, and she stays with like her cousin and their family and her uncle. And let's just say a mystery ensues from there. So we have fantasy, and there's fantasy elements in the books. There's also a huge mystery that takes place, and there is romance. The romance is so good, guys. It's honestly so good. I just think this world is so cool, and it is so interesting to read about. It's a great balance between fantasy, mystery, and romance. If you're somebody who is afraid to get into fantasy, this is a great recommendation for you because it is not like fantasy in your face. It's just like, okay, fantasy purr. I rated this a 4.5 out of 5. It was a wonderful trilogy. Can't complain, honestly. Butcher and Blackbird. I think I rated this a 3 or like a 3.5. I honestly don't even know. This book was not for me. I can appreciate the style, appreciate the genre, and can totally see other people really loving this book. I'm not a dark romance girly, I don't think. Like, it just was too much. I was frightened. If this man ever crossed my path, baby, I'm calling the police. Like, I do not want to entertain any of that. That is not for me. It doesn't rev my engine, get me going. Baby, it shuts down my vehicle. Okay, I'm not doing that. This book follows, actually, I don't even know who it follows. I permanently blocked that book out of my mind. This book follows Sloane and Rowan. They kill serial killers. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube. Track down, hunt, and kill serial killers. So they are killers themselves, but like it's for a greater good. But also they were killing like really horrible people. So I was like, okay, period. Like, get those people off the face of the earth. But they kind of have this little competition going. It's like once a year or something where they like are trying to get to somebody first and like hunt down somebody first. I don't know. It's like a whole sort of game. I don't know, guys. Like, I really tried. I did read the whole thing, but I honestly think that I have shut this book out of my brain like permanently. I will say, Rowan and Sloane, they love each other, okay? They are two peas in a murderous pod. If you would like to read this book, it's not that I don't recommend this book. I just think that this genre is personally not for me. If you're somebody who is totally fine with the dark romance and that is very up your alley, then yeah, read this book. I mean, I honestly didn't hate the book. Check your trigger warnings. Do not go into this book without reading the trigger warnings. Why I read the trigger warnings and then continued with the book, because those trigger warnings were like out the wazoo. Trigger, trigger, trigger. This genre is just not for me, but I do think that if this is up your alley, then you might enjoy this book. Next up, I listened to From Here to the Great Unknown by Lisa Marie Presley and Riley Keough. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. This book was so good. Weird fact about me, guys. I was in a musical last year, played Priscilla, so I've done so much research on Elvis and his family. I read Priscilla's memoir. The whole Elvis lore is very fascinating to me. Okay, so when I saw that this book was released, I was like, I have to read it, number one. But when I saw that the audiobook has Lisa Marie's narration, Riley Keough's narration, and Julia Roberts, I'm sold immediately. Pulled it up on my Spotify so fast. It was so good. Like, I'm so entranced by the world of Elvis, and I think it's so cool reading Priscilla's memoir and just being so encapsulated in the Elvis story last year. And then exactly a year later, I'm reading Lisa Marie's point of view and Riley Keough's point of view. And it's crazy how some of the struggles that Elvis went through are very like generational. It's being passed down, and everyone kind of seems to struggle with the same things in the Elvis Presley family. If you love memoirs, 100% read this one. I recommend listening to it. If you love Elvis, if you love memoirs, you have to listen to this one. This is so good. The next book that I read in January is none other than The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Into this book, I was terrified because, first of all, it's a honker. Okay, it's pretty big. The text is so small. Like, baby, this is biblical. You're telling me this is not the New Testament. But I was like, okay, I should read it. I got several recommendations, like, of people telling me to read this book. One of my best friends rated it 5 stars. It was a hard one to get into because it's very educational, very intelligent. It's what is it called? Dark academia. Very academic. I really loved this book. I rated it a 4.5 star, tabbed some little quotes and then some predictions that I had, and I was right. Those of you who don't know what this book is about, I actually don't even know what this book is about. Rutrow. What's the main guy's name? Oh my god, what is his name? At this rate, I'm just about to start calling him Secret, and his last name's History. Richard is his name. Anyways, follows Richard. He goes to this college. He's poor. He doesn't come from a lot of money. There's a group on campus, and they are studying Greek. And it's kind of like a secret society. They're not in like the regular college classes. They are kind of like in their own elite group. He wants to join their group so bad. Newsflash, he ends up joining the group. I think this group is a lot more than he bargained for. It just tells the story of this elite college group as they kind of unravel, become so obsessed with their academics. It's so hard to explain this book without like revealing secrets. In the prologue, you find out that one of the people in this elite group has been killed by the elite group. One member of the group is killed by the group. And so it kind of, that's the prologue, and then the story takes place in Richard's POV as he's joining the group, as they're becoming friends, and then how they got to the point that they killed a member of their group. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I would have rated it 5 stars, honestly, if I had more fun reading it. She's a thinker. You're going to have to put on your thinking cap, and it's going to have to stay on. I'm somebody, when I personally like to read, I like to relax and escape to other worlds and just chill. I was not chilling at all. In fact, I was doing quite the opposite and thinking, and like I almost used a dictionary at one point. I do think this is an amazing read if you're somebody who would love to do a character study, would love to kind of dive into this world, who is ready to put on their thinking cap. This is an excellent book. This is a modern classic. It's honestly one of those books that you would read in like your high school English class. I personally really enjoyed this book and would recommend it. Next up, I read The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I read this for my book club pick for January. Follows Piccola and her life. Her biggest wish in life is to have blue eyes. She kind of like sees all these Barbie dolls have blue eyes and like the blonde hair, and she doesn't look like that. And so she wishes more than anything that she could look like those dolls. It just kind of follows as she's kind of growing up and navigating her own life. It shows her family, her friends, just what she's going through a little girl's eyes. There's not even enough that I could like even like say to express how I felt during reading this book. It's like that quote that's like, you don't know someone's life until you walk a mile in their shoes or something. That is not the quote, but you know what I'm saying. And I think that this book is like the closest equivalent that I could think of as like walking a mile in someone else's shoes that I will never be able to walk, and then being able to see life through their eyes. It was a hard read, and it was very interesting. Like I zoomed through this. I think I read it in a day or two. Like I genuinely loved reading this book. It definitely made me think a lot about things that I haven't thought about before, which is great. I love that in a book. So beautiful, but it's so heartbreaking. Check your trigger warnings too. I was very taken aback when I got to a certain part of the book because I honestly had no idea that was happening and that was gonna happen, and I did not check my trigger warnings. So that's on me. I'm not a very easily triggered person, so I don't usually check trigger warnings. However, this book triggered me. Toni Morrison's woman's writing is absolutely incredible, and this makes me want to read so many of her other books. Like, I am so enthralled by the way that she writes. I really genuinely want to read her books. Like, this book was so good. Next book that I read is The Handmaid's Tale. I read this for my other book club. That is my family book club. Shout out to you, family. Oh my gosh, wait. Am I smart reading all these thinker books? This book follows Offred, and she's a handmaid in this kind of new society that was taken over. People take over the government and completely like redo the entire nation. So women lost their jobs. They were not allowed to have jobs anymore. They weren't allowed to have their own bank accounts, their own money anymore. Just kept taking it one step further. Kind of terrifying, especially in 2025. Scary. So this follows Offred. She is a handmaid, and essentially what a handmaid is they're kind of like a surrogate for like the richer families, and they carry a child. They're there to kind of do all like the labor of pregnancy. After those 9 months, toodaloo, on to the next house to make another one. They're like not allowed to be educated. Like they're not allowed to read, they're not allowed to write, they're not allowed to do any of these things. Like their job is literally just to produce offspring for other people. It was very insane to read about because it's just like the whole world, and like reading what it was into what it's now become is so scary. The fact that this could happen, I was scared. I rated this one 4 stars, I believe. I personally really enjoyed the book. The only gripe that I have with this book is that we would constantly switch from like past to present, and sometimes I had absolutely no idea if we were in the past or the present. For all I know, we could have been 20 years in the future on Mars, and I would have been like, oh, okay, I had no idea. I just really struggled following along what kind of timeline that we were in. But other than that, it's a very good book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can totally see why a TV show was made out of it and why it has like this kind of cult following. I'm not planning to read book 2. There is a second book in this little like duology, and it's like Offred grown up or whatever. I don't know. I'm not reading that. I'm just gonna honestly probably watch the TV show and then go from there. Let me know if you've seen the TV show and if it's good and if I should even bother watching it. The next book that I read is The Sanatorium by Sarah Pierce. This book follows Ellen. She gets invited to her brother and his fiance. It's either a wedding or an engagement party. I honestly don't know. But it's in the mountains in the cold. Literally what this cover is where it was. And this big building used to be an asylum type-ish. More sinister things were going on there than I think a lot of people were led on to believe. And it's recently been renovated into a luxury hotel. She is going there to go see her brother and his fiance and celebrate with them. Get snowed in. Like there's some sort of avalanche. Cannot leave this hotel. But people start dying. Reading the back of this, the premise of it sounds so good. It's giving The Shining, okay? Like this sounds so good. Honestly, genuinely was so good until the last like 30 pages. The plot twist made me so angry. No, like honestly, I'm literally livid. I cannot even fathom that was the plot twist. Plot twist made no freaking sense, guys. And if you've read this book and you think it makes sense and you have a way to explain it, literally please message me and be like, oh, I think this. Because, baby, I'm searching and scanning for answers in every line and it did not add up. I did rate it 3 stars because I enjoyed the book so much and I read it so quickly that I feel bad rating it lower just because of the last 30 pages. But in a thriller, the last 30 pages are the pages that count. Can't even think about that book anymore. I need to move on with my life. The next book that I read is The Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. I'm not going to go too much into this because I actually posted a reading vlog with this book, reading new release books for a week. All I'll say is that I expected a lot more of this. I love Adrienne Young. The Unmaking of June Fair is one of my favorite books, literally of all time. And this book really just let me down. One reason why I love Adrienne Young is she kind of just takes like the real world, real scenarios and puts some sort of magical realism in her books. Yeah. So this book was alluding a lot to magical realism and it never came. That made me so mad. I don't want to beat a dead horse with this. I did not love this book. It's a 3-star book in my heart, but I gave it a 3.5 because there was a cute dog. I personally don't recommend this book. There's so many better mystery thrillers out there than this book. So just do yourself a favor. I don't think you need to read this. Next up, we have It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. Thank you so much, NetGalley, for letting me read this book before its release date. Yes, you heard me right. This book is not out yet. This book comes out May 27th. Mark your calendars because, guys, I love this book. This book was so good. Again, I'm not going to yap too much about it because I read it in my last reading vlog, but this book was super fun, super sweet, and just lighthearted. Like, this book is a perfect read by the beach book because it is genuinely just such lighthearted, easy read. I love this book so much. If you want to know more of my feelings about this book that are more specific, go ahead and watch that reading vlog. I'm not going to yap on because I've already done that. But yeah, 4 stars. Thoroughly enjoyed this book. It was super cute. And last but certainly not least for the month of January, we have Twisted Love by Anna Wong. I was a little bit intimidated to read these books because I know they have a large amount of people who either love them or hate these books. I don't even know how I feel. And if I'm being quite honest, like I still do not have a rating for this book. It's about our main characters, Alex and Ava. Ava, her brother's very protective over her. he essentially goes away. I forgot where he went. Irrelevant, anyways. Leaves and kind of enlists the help of his best friend, Alex, to protect over her and make sure that she's okay and she's not getting into trouble. He takes his job very seriously. Okay, like that man is very protective over Ava. Okay, like alarmingly protective. There were just so many twists and turns, like with Ava's personal family life and also like Alex's personal family life, because both of their families are like very high up, like in, I guess you could say, the mafia. They're just like very rich, important people, and a lot of crazy things went on in these books. It was very unrealistic, but also, baby, I was eating it up. If Twisted Love was my dinner, not a single crumb left because I'm sorry, ate it up. This book just feels so much like Pretty Little Liars, Switched at Birth, like The Foster, like those ABC Family shows where like plot twists are just happening and like crazy things are going on and they may not make a lick of sense, but you know what? I'm very much intrigued. I am literally 50% through the second one right now. However, I wouldn't necessarily recommend these books because I don't think that the writing in these books is very amazing. It does feel like a ABC Family freeform show. Like it doesn't feel like some substantial piece of art like The Secret History or like The Bluest Eye that are like modern classics. It's not like that. It's just like smut with a crazy plot. I eat up smut with a crazy plot. Like I really do. I don't know what to rate it because like I said, the writing is not that good and things were kind of like very absurd. But you know what? I had a good time. And if I had a good time, it would be a 4. If I rated it on actual writing, probably a 3. Really enjoyed this book and I'm going to continue reading this series, to be honest, but I completely understand if you don't like this book or you have no interest reading this book because that's so valid. Anywho, those are the books that I read in the month of January. I'm so happy that I read all of these. Honestly, like, although we had some flops, I didn't hate anything that I read. Like, no book made me want to, like, flush it down the toilet. I'm so excited for the month of February. I have so many good books picked out that I'm going to be reading. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you subscribe to my channel, like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye!